Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof, and I am here with another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted. And you might recognize this guy on the screen next to me, Terraine LeBeau. What a lovely name. It's a romantic name, LeBeau. So, welcome, Terraine, and I'm glad you're here. And Terraine is a second time guest on Winning Proof Unscripted. So, welcome, Terrain. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Michelle. We go way back like babies and pacifiers, so thank you for having me on the show again.
Yeah, well, you look way too young to be that old. So, I know you're not. But that's great. Yeah, we've known each other for a while. And I've been a guest on Terrain's podcast, and he has been like that. I said, this is the second time. And what we'd like to talk about and what we think will bring the most value to everybody is talk about the R word, relationships. So, Terrain, first, let's start out by telling everybody what you do and who you are, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, it's always a pleasure to join you again, Michelle. And hello, everyone. My name is Terrain. I am someone that is a coach for those who are experiencing relationship grief. And some people may hear the words relationship, that forbidden R word, and run for the hills. Some people may have hear that grief word and run for the hills as well. But grief in the sense of not only a loss of a person, but a loss of identity. Who am I? What do I want to become? And things of that nature. So that is what I do as a relationship grief coach.
Okay, that's great. And I'm guessing that you keep really busy with that.
I do. I've done a number of presentations. I'm part of two Facebook groups where I discuss that. And you'll be surprised how many people lose themselves, not only in relationships, but in the pursuit of a relationship.
Oh, what do you mean? The pursuit of a relationship? Are people in hot pursuit of relationships these days?
Oh yeah, like when you turn on the movies and the shows, it's all about that, right? Rose petals from the heavens, a man rolling up in a tux and a limousine, and the girl in her best white outfit. But what I work with is something a little bit more realistic, and it is very busy only because, and I'll share this, it's busy because as social beings, human beings, we want to feel wanted.
Yes.
We want to feel excited. We want to feel like we belong to something, but more importantly, someone. And I think when you mention hot pursuit, it's because we're all running in all different directions, like children, right? 5 years old, they're just running to run. A lot of adults are just running after relationship to run after relationship, and I help to guide them in the right direction.
Okay, that makes complete sense because when you were talking about the movies, I was thinking, oh, Popeye, you know, even in cartoons, it shows up, and I'm quoting a really old classic cartoon, but I think about the olive oil and Popeye and, and the flowers and the mess ups and the making up and all that. So when people are in such need of wanting to be a part of something, be a part of a two, what, I guess, what prevents them from, like, are people just aimless when they're just stabbing in the dark and trying to find something, or are they intentional about, okay, I want this kind of person, I have a laundry list of this many qualities? I mean, how do you see people approaching their pursuit?
Oh yeah, that's a good question and a really big one to ask. So what I do is like I've developed this model where I help my clients, and I call it the SOAR model. So if the S stands for what you got to start with, what you got to stop doing. So when I ask my clients, mostly women, what do they want to stop doing? They give me a long list, right? Everyone knows what they don't want. I want to stop feeling depressed. I want to stop being heartbroken. I want to stop anxiety. I want to stop being cheated on. I want to stop dating a narcissist because narcissists are everywhere. And then as they begin to write down their stop list, I get them to say, okay, put this on a column and ask yourself, what do you want to start doing that's going to be the opposite of this? And that's where there's more difficulty because, to your point, we do approach it in a lot of ways aimlessly. We don't treat it like our job. Our job will do 6 months of training, we'll do some coaching, and then we're ready. But that's after the prep work of identifying this job is for us. When it comes to relationships, it's all hopes and dreams. I hope he's going to treat me well. I hope he's a nice guy. I hope he has money. I hope he's 6 feet 6 inches and six figures. I hope, I hope, I hope. But I'm the type of person, okay, I understand your hopes and dreams. Let's make them into reality. And that's where I start with the stop method and the start method.
That makes complete sense because that's how we're wired a lot of times is I don't want, I don't want, I don't want. Oh, I've done, I've experienced that. And I think our experiences create that don't list because we've dated or we've known people that have created that don't list. And so when since you coach mostly women, I'm hoping that a lot of women are watching this and what where do you start? I guess that's a better question. Where do you start with what they want? Because like you said, a lot are I want these physical characteristics in a man. I want him to treat me like a queen 24/7. They have kind of unrealistic expectations. And so, how do you mold those unrealistic expectations sometimes, that we want the movie picture, and really that's not real life. That's why we pay to go see them. So, how do you mold your clients after they do the S to just be realistic and bring that kind of silo, the unrealistic expectations into reality?
Absolutely. So when it comes to the expectations, that'll lead me to the O and what do you want to overcome. So what I say is that because it's unrealistic is because you have extreme expectations because you've experienced extreme hurt, right? Two
Mhm.
sides of the spectrum. So
Good.
as you begin to come closer to the middle, then they're going to be more closer aligned. So what I like to do is I ask them, okay, tell me your ideal man. Exaggerate it, right?
Okay.
And then they'll exaggerate everything. That's why I make the joke, the 6 feet, the 6 inches, the six figures, right? This is a god amongst man. So I
Yeah.
said, okay, I know, right? So when they build their man, because there's like a store here in Canada, we can build a bear. So that's where I got the idea from. When you build your man, I say,
Mhm.
okay, what type of woman does this man want? And that's where you hear crickets. Then I ask them the next question, where can you find this man? Where does he hang out? Crickets. So then I asked them, marketing 101 is you need to know your market and you need to know product placement. If you don't know where this man is going to be, if you don't know what this man is looking for, then you won't be able to show up, right? Like if I take you for example and you wanted to have a job, let's say you want to work for IBM,
Mhm.
right? And there's IBM headquarters down the street. You know that you have to go there and show up in your best
Yeah.
with your resume in hand, your best outfit, a smile on your face, you know that you have to show up. IBM is the man. If the women aren't able to find that headquarters, they're going to be, to your earlier point, just walking the streets, right? And there's always going to be that one man, I'm IBM, I can treat you right. When we know that he's a narcissist, we know that he's the abuser. So that's where I get my women to start saying that give me your list no matter how exaggerated it is. And then let's break that down and create behaviors and placement where you can show up for that type of man and be the type of woman that he wants.
Wow. And that just perfectly segments into, the next question I'm thinking of is that what happens when you're doing that, helping them through that step? What happens if you observe the woman or the man, but in this case, we'll just focus on women. What if you see, ooh, babe, you got some work to do. Maybe she is extremely rough around the edges. Maybe her language isn't up to par. We'll just say that. Maybe she's just, like this, or whatever. How do you approach that? Because a lot of times women's psyches are very delicate and sensitive and defensive. So how do you approach that if you see somebody that has this list, you're helping them be, realistic about it, but you see there's work to do.
Yeah, so you have to be delicate, right? Because for a lot of women, there's a lot of insecurities, especially when it revolves around their looks,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Right. So when the women I work with, because they're over the age of 35 and 45, in general, society would tell them that, oh my God, you're old news, you're old, so love has expired, it can't find you, right? You and I have had this conversation,
Yes, we have. Yeah.
right? So what I let them know is that you're beautiful to someone or group of people at every stage in your life, right?
Okay,
So for,
that's
right?
really good. Yeah, that's sage wisdom for women over 40, say.
Absolutely, right? So in your 20s, you're beautiful to a group of people. In your 30s, same thing, 40s, 50s, and so on.
Okay.
So I get them to be reflective, understand that just because you acknowledge what isn't working, or just because you come face to face with your insecurities, doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Let's acknowledge them, which is the third letter in SOAR, which is the A. Let's acknowledge it, understand it, and then when we do that, then we can say, okay, is this still serving me in my life? My insecurities, my self doubts, my whatever? Or can I maybe reframe it into something else? I'm beautiful at this age because instead of physical beauty, maybe being a 10 out of 10, let's say physical beauty was an 8 out of 10, but on the emotional beauty,
Okay.
now you're a 10 out of 10 because you're seasoned, you're experienced.
Mhm.
So that's where I get them to maybe shift their mindset into what is attractive and what is working for them instead of against them.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say, okay, based on the point you just made, and say you have a client who is very large, robust, and maybe not super cute. Um, and she's saying, you know what? I hear what you're saying. I get that I have this wonderful, warm, loving personality, but men aren't looking for that initially. They're looking for the more, maybe a mature Barbie doll-ish type of person. But they can't get to my personality because they can't get past my looks. So what do you tell those women who think that or believe that?
Excellent question. First thing I tell them lose weight. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, and
I'm
then it's
joking.
like click.
I know they hang up the phone, right? What the first question I would ask them after sharing that, first thing I would say is that thank you for sharing. The first question I would ask them is that describe the type of men that are telling you these things,
Ooh,
right?
okay,
Because we need to put a face to this
great.
imagery. And then I would ask them, is this the type of man that you think you can build with? Right? That's my
Okay,
second question, right?
excellent.
So the reason why I do this is there's an old saying that there's someone for everyone, which is true, right? Mathematically, unfortunately, there isn't because there's more women than men, but you work with what you work with. I would then go is the second statement I would say is that the men that are telling you no, they may not find you attractive, but are there men who find you attractive that you are saying no to?
Oh, yeah,
Right?
that's it. That's a
Because
thing.
because
Yeah.
there is a thing, right? So now, if that's the case, I
Yeah.
would then probe even more, then ask them, the men that you're telling no to, is it because of a physical appearance you're telling them no? Or is it internal that you're telling them no? And many times in my experiences, the women who are larger, who are more rotund, for
Hmm.
whatever the reason, medical or otherwise,
Yeah.
they're saying no to good men based off of they're saying that the men doesn't look good enough. So if you're willing to give it, you have to be willing to accept it, right? So in those cases, to close and to be a little bit more specific, is that I would say, hey, I understand that the men that are maybe you're chasing after, they're saying no because of your size, but let's see if we can find something that can overcome that, meaning that how does he treat you? How does he
Mhm.
respect you, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you may not find that person as physically attractive, but you're going to find them mentally attractive, emotionally attractive. That's the advice I would give to them.
Okay, that makes sense because I think that's what you're talking about. Women just close their minds to it. They're not open to even talking about that. And I can see you show them a different perspective, a different way of looking at it. And that's so refreshing because some coaches would say, yeah, if you go be the person you want to meet, and then their poor things are at the gym, and I see them at the gym, and I always applaud, the people that are robust at the gym. You're at the gym, you're trying, you're giving it your college try. uh but sometimes it's just not enough to attract, and then like you're saying, they're saying no to the same thing. Basically, they're not looking at the inner qualities, they're just saying no way, no how. And isn't it true? I mean, we have to be attracted to the person, I mean, sometimes the saying is, yeah, you can learn to love me because you can get past all this and just learn to love me. But you have to be attracted to the person. Does that happen all the time right at first, or do some people kind of wade their way into, yeah, I wasn't that attracted to him, yeah, not at all, but then his personality or the way he treats me. So how kind of explain that dynamic.
Yeah, like it's a tough place to be in if you're a bigger person. Let's be 100% honest, right? But it goes back to, because you mentioned the gym, progression versus perfection. Like, what is it that you ultimately
Yes.
want? Do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? What is that you ultimately want? Because slim girls, there's a group of some girls getting married every day. There's a group of medium-sized girls getting married every day, and there's a group of large-sized girls, women
Yes.
getting married every day, right? So the question I would say for the person who is bigger in size, or even if we broaden it, right? If there's something about your physical appearance that the person believes
Hmm.
is an obstacle to them getting a healthy outcome, the question you have to then ask yourself is, one, how much of it is in my control,
Mm.
right?
Good. Yeah.
Two, how determined am I to correct it or improve it? Because remember, you don't have to be perfect. You can go from a size 12 to a size 10 and look very good. And you can
Hmm.
remain at a size 10 and look very good, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And then the third thing is, if you were to pursue this change, are you then going to use it only to attract the men that have told you no? Right? Similar to like Maury Povich, look at me now. I'm a size 2. You rejected me in high school, right?
Yeah.
Right, because then what's going to happen is you're still going to not attract the type of man that you want. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? Like, you don't want to tie your identity, that goes back to what I work with, right? You don't
Hmm.
want to tie your identity to your weight, your body size, or physical appearance as you get older, because as you get older, beauty across the board will fade,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes. Yes, it does. You get crow's feet. You get gray hairs that you have to cover. There's all kinds of things. Things shift every few years. It's like, where did that come from? So it's a thing. So in your experience with coaching, what do you see as the top three insecurities that women have? And I know you've touched on the physical, so we'll put that as, we'll add that as number one. They're insecure about their physical self. What are the other two top things that women really struggle with from your perspective?
Absolutely. So the first and foremost would be looks. Like, I would include looks.
Mm.
The second would be women who have children outside of marriage, single mothers.
Okay. Mm.
That is an obstacle. When I say single, so I'm gonna define
Yeah.
a few terms. So looks, everyone knows what that is, right? I'm talking about your physical appearance and or your style. So you can be a size 4, but your outfit just looks ridiculous on you, right?
Yeah.
Too much
Yes.
cleavage, too much booty, too much everything. And we've seen people like that, right?
Yeah, too much.
Yeah, so it
Too
is
much.
just too much. So it could be looks, it could be your style. A second thing is that single mothers, and by single mothers I mean that mothers who've had children outside of marriage.
Hmm.
That's what I'm defining as single mothers. If you are married, you have a child, and your partner passes away, you're a widower. It's a different term,
Yes.
right? Just for the
Yes.
conversation.
Absolutely,
I want
yes.
I want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And another thing is age. Age
Yes.
is a
Mm.
big thing that I deal with women, especially after 40, because
Yeah.
many of the women that I work with, they've been married. They've had
Mhm.
children within the relationship and the relationship ends, right? So in America, some stats, majority of people get married in their late 20s. That's just
Yeah.
on average, right?
Mhm.
Average marriage lasts 10 years. So when do they get divorced? In their late 30s. They're entering the market at 40. 40 is that age. They've
Yeah.
had the kids, they've had the marriage, they're probably at least 10 years into their career. Now they're like, how am I going to date again? So those are the three things that people struggle with. It's looks and style,
Mhm.
single motherhood, children born outside of the marriage, and then age, especially 40 and older.
Okay. That makes sense. Do you find that women are deal with insecurity from past growing up years, formative years, and they were harshly criticized, they were constantly criticized, and now they're 40 plus? Do you think that is a huge deterrent of that insecurity thing? Do they carry that all those years into their 40s and now they're trying to date, but they're so insecure and insecure based on they've just been verbally thrashed all their lives?
Oh yeah, like if you look at the top three things, let's say for example, you're 5 out of 10, you're a single mother and you're 45. You're gonna think it's the end of the world, right? Let me just jump inside my grave now.
Yeah.
At that point, right? Like you're just, oh
Life
my
is
God, I got
over.
three
Life
strikes.
is over. Yeah.
There you go. You got three strikes, right? Based on the struggles. But a lot of
Yeah.
our trauma and a lot of our struggles come from our childhood, not necessarily because our parents were that bad, because maybe we didn't get what we needed. It's hard for children to
Yeah.
communicate that to their parents,
Yes. Ooh, that's
right?
so
And
good.
if you look at let's say parents who are, let's say, 60 and older.
Hmm.
Many of them could be immigrants, many of them could be blue collar, many of them spent a lot of hours working and providing, right? One of the love languages, acts of service,
That's
right?
right. That's
To
right.
their children. But their children maybe didn't need to be loved that way. Maybe they needed words of affirmation, but their parents weren't home to give it. So what did they do? They went out to go get it, right?
Yes.
Or the
Yeah.
love was conditional and they had to perform. Hey, mom, I got an A. Hey, dad, I hit a home run. So now you develop these two types of styles as you enter your adulthood. So now, as you're an adult, you're in your 30s, you're in your 40s, you're in your 50s. This is how you're bringing into the trauma because if you look at some people who struggle in relationships, what do they say? I did this. Why didn't it work out? I did that. Because their acts of service isn't coming from love. It's coming from fear. If I don't perform, he's going to leave. So
Yes.
that's why they always have to perform. And when the performance is no longer needed, they get discarded because a new victim graduates every June, right? So they
Yeah.
would find someone else. And that's the problem with that I've experienced with the people I work with is that you can point it back to their childhood and because they've always wanted that maybe attention and a validation from their parents and it was conditional, they've gone on to have conditional type relationships and eventually you get either overwhelmed or burnt out. And you know, as you get older, you have more and more health issues, so you can't do necessarily what you could do in your 20s
Yeah.
without sleep and personal care.
Yeah, that's so true. And I can, relate to what you were saying. And I think, and confirm this before I ask my question, can the five love languages, can those shift through the years? Can you have one earlier in your life and then it shifts to another one in another stage of life? Or do you just keep with
That's
one?
that's a really good question. I believe it can. Like if I use myself an example, I know mine did shift. It shifted from quality time to more words of affirmation. But what I believe, to further answer your question, is that the love language you didn't get as a child is what you're going to want as an adult.
Oh, that's so good. That's so true, too. Okay. So I asked that because I can relate with my love language up until I think just a few years ago was words of affirmation. I'll do anything for you if you compliment me because that was so missing in my childhood. And my dad's love language was acts of service. So to him, showing love was post divorce coming over and changing my vacuum cleaner bag, taking my car for a couple of days and getting it detailed or an oil change. And I would have rather had an I love you. I would have rather, that's what would have filled my soul more as I've gotten, more years. I've 24 years post divorce now of being single, and it has shifted to physical touch. Just somebody just touch my skin, just non-sexual touch, and it just, I work alone and I am alone a lot. So I say all that because I can totally relate to that. So in your coaching again, and I'm talking a lot about your coaching because I think it's just so helpful for women that are going to be watching this. When you have a woman that has one love language, do you typically guide her into what she needs, like that unmet need from childhood, like look for that? Or how do you approach that? If that makes sense, if that question even makes sense.
It does, it does. Depending on the level of the trauma, you may want to refer out, so like to a therapist and things like that, right? Because
Okay.
maybe there's something else. But in general, absolutely. Like for a lot of men, quality time is how they express love, right?
Okay.
Because we have the burden and the blessing of performance. I build house, I save world, right? I'm speaking very like caveman like, right?
Yeah,
I save
absolutely.
world,
Yeah.
she like me, right?
Me
Where
drag home turkey for dinner.
exactly, exactly, you know how it is, right? And for a lot of women, the way they express it is quality time. Let me sit next to my man and watch a movie. Let
Yeah.
me cuddle. Those
Yeah.
seem to be
Yeah.
the two default. But as we get older, we definitely want that touch because it's an emotional and intimate moment, even though if it doesn't lead to anything sexual. So I want to express that because when I have that type of conversation with the women I work with, I ask them,
Mm.
how is it that you want to be loved? And they'll give me an
Okay.
example, right?
Good.
And then
Yeah.
I would ask them, how do they express their love? Usually people will give the same answer, right? Right? I want to be loved by receiving gifts. I give gifts. Easy, right?
Hmm.
Then I ask the question, the person that you're looking for, do they want to be loved that way? That's where people miss, right? Like I
Yes.
look at my partner and we want to be loved in two different ways, right? I like words of affirmation and, well, sorry, we express it in different ways, right? So hers is receiving gifts.
Hmm.
Mine is words of affirmation,
Hmm.
right? Growing up, receiving gifts was a trigger for me. In her dating experience, words of affirmation were because she's like, oh, guys would just tell you anything to get in bed,
Yeah,
right?
that's the
So
same.
now there was a disconnect, right?
Yes.
There's a block because she's triggered by the way I want to be loved, and she's triggered by, and I was triggered by the way that she wants to be loved earlier on. So
Hmm.
we had to discuss this. What we came together then is that quality time out of the five was the bridge. And that's where people have to find the bridge. What is going to bring you two together so you can be loved in the way that you want to be loved? And using those five love languages or any love languages you want to use can be that. So if someone wants, for example, physical touch, and let's say I'm the type of person who wants quality time, how can we bring each other together? Maybe
Yeah.
words of affirmation. Hey, Michelle, insert compliment. Hey, Terraine, insert compliment. Then you guys have each other's attention. You guys come together. I have the quality time. You have the physical touch. So that's what we need to start doing. And that's how I coach my women that I work with.
Oh, that's so good and so practical and helpful. Like sink your teeth into practical. So let's kind of turn a slight corner. There are a lot of women who try too hard. And I have a book somewhere down here in my library by, I think it's Kevin Leman, Women Who Try Too Hard. And I know that you see that a lot, and especially the older, the more mature women. And we just we don't think we're a hot commodity on the dating market. And so when somebody shows us attention, we're just like, you know, that was a dog panting. That was my interpretation, my imitation. But we just try. We are not ourselves. We just, how can I, how can I do this? Can I do this for you? Can let me get that. And we're just, the man is just, I think that makes him nervous. I think that just he wants you to just chill and be yourself. How do you approach women with that mentality who just get into something and they just try too hard?
That's a difficult one for a lot of women, especially in general. You mentioned the dog in heat, and a lot of people are like dogs in heat. But what's interesting about that is, like, if you look at, let's say, the average woman, their trajectory, right, in their dating experience, in their 20s, any and everyone is chasing them in general, right? And
Hmm.
then 30s, similar, and then there starts to be a little bit of a dip in the amount of men, not the quality, just the amount of men that's chasing after them,
Yeah.
right? Because usually that's because there's other women that are married off, and some of the men are married at that age. There's a number of reasons.
Yes.
So some women have a difficult time accepting that the skin is looser, they have a little bit more fat on their body, and maybe they don't have the sheer volume of men at their
Mhm.
door. So what they then do is that some women will compensate for that. You probably seen them with the push-up bra to their chin, the cleavage, the shorts that look like underwear, but they're calling them shorts, and the
Yeah.
heels that are so high they've gone from 5'2" to 6'7",
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're doing that.
Overcompensating for
They're
real.
overcompensating, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people look at it like you and I maybe and laugh, or some people laugh about it, right? But mentally, it's concerning because they're doing things that they wouldn't have done years earlier.
True.
So if I can speak to these women, and when I see that happening, I tell them, as you get older, there's supposed to be a shift from physical beauty to emotional and spiritual beauty
And depth.
and
Depth. Yeah,
depth,
at that
right?
age,
Yeah,
you should have depth,
absolutely.
emotional, intellectual depth.
Yeah, so you're right in regards to that. So if you start to fight against that, then you're not going to be nurturing your soul, as you mentioned, or the depth, and you
Yeah.
also go to fade. So I get them to understand that you need to start making that shift and putting more value on it, because a man that only wants you for your body, especially at that age,
Hmm.
isn't going to be healthy for you and isn't going to be long lasting. Let's work on the canvas that's internal, and then the canvas on the external will shine as well.
Oh, that's so true. And I know just the saying through the years has been women give love to get sex, and men give sex to get love. Or men give love to get sex. I totally botched that up, but you know what I mean. So there is a disconnect right there because, oh, oh, the Popeye, oh, he told me everything and he told me I was beautiful and he told me blah, blah, blah. And he couldn't keep his eyes off me and blah, and so the woman is just mesmerized, and so she's willing to compromise herself and devalue her body in that way, for somebody who just is looking for a quick hoop-de-doo. And so that is creates this total disconnect. And then that's why, but I don't understand. He just left the next morning and he didn't, and they're heartbroken. So how do you coach women through that scenario? Because I know that happens over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'll actually answer that with an example that I
Okay.
was discussing with someone. She had a traumatic childhood, which we were
Mhm.
discussing, which ties in, right? And she wanted physical touch. And this reminded me of the situation because you mentioned as you got older, you wanted
Mhm.
physical touch. She
Non-sexual touch, just somebody
non-sexual,
touch
just a
me.
hug, a
Just
cuddle.
a hug.
Yeah,
A
just a
hug.
hug. We all need a hug, right? We all need
Yes.
a hug some days.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, so what she did is that she went into sessions about it because she was becoming it was too much for her to handle.
Okay.
It led her down the path of having sex to get this physical touch, right? She's like,
Hmm.
okay, I wanted someone just to be intimate with me, and then eventually became toxic. And there is a toxic side to the five love languages because people are manipulative and gaslighting, right?
Yes.
It was to the point, Michelle, where when she would go for her coaching sessions, she would have someone in the parking lot waiting to have sex with them in the
Oh my
parking
God.
lot, wherever. So after I share this, after all this was said, she began to realize that it wasn't the physical touch she wanted, it was a quality time
Yeah,
masquerading,
interesting. Okay.
right? So I share that with you because it's hard to understand what we truly want when we look at it from a superficial perspective or
Mhm.
lens. To your
Yes.
point, right? When you mentioned depth, we need to look deeper and ask ourselves questions. Why do I want this? And how is it going to benefit me? If you can't identify the benefit, then maybe it isn't for you, and maybe you need to regroup and take
Mhm.
another look within yourself.
Okay. That makes sense. Complete sense. So, okay. Okay. Is there something it are there recurring patterns that you see with say women over 40, well over 40, and I am one of them. Do you see do you see patterns of continual, I'll call it failure or disappointment, that they try and try and try and try? Not the women who try too hard to please somebody, but they just try all these different, I'll say, worldly methods of getting a man, and none of them are successful. Do you
Yeah,
see
there's some women.
recurring patterns of that?
Yeah, there's some women who stop short of kidnapping when it comes to
Okay.
the type of man that they want, right? But no, some of the patterns is one, um they don't think love is after the age of 20. They think if you're 30 years old, love just stops. It dies,
Hmm.
right? So that impacts their self-confidence. A
Okay.
second thing is that especially when it comes to dating apps and online dating, there's a sense that they're not good enough to quote unquote compete with other women,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, and a part of me thinks the reason why that is because I don't know if you experienced this, Michelle, growing up, especially in high school and college,
Mhm.
I saw girls my age going out with guys who were older, 5, 6,
Oh,
7 years older, right? I
yeah,
think everyone has come across that.
yeah.
So maybe subconsciously now they're remembering, hey, I remember how that used to happen, and now I'm that woman who can't get men my age because they're going after the 20-year-olds who was me 20 years ago. So it's like that
Yes.
full circle life, right? So those are some recurring themes where it's self-worth. That's a big one.
Hmm.
Love expires after 29 and 364 days at 11:59 p.m. And three is that I'm too old to change. And
And yeah,
that's the
I think that's a
mindset.
big one. Yeah. I'm set in my ways. And I think a lot of women in their 60s, and I'll speak for myself, are just like, you know what? To introduce a man into my world, everything is like just set, and I don't want a man coming in here and messing up my stuff and wanting to eat all the time. And he expect, and all that. And you're not married. He just has expectations and stuff. So I think that unwilling to change thing is really prevalent out there because I think the mentality is, yeah, I would like a companion, someone to go to the movies with, somebody who's not going to attack me, physically. Just somebody to hang out with, a companion. And I think that becomes more important as you get older, you know. Have you
I
seen
agree. I
that?
agree. Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think I also have to factor in like if you're someone, let's say you divorce at 40 and then you're trying to date and it wasn't working out for a number of years, right? Your mind got conditioned to a marriage and now you're out of it and your mind's getting conditioned to that. It goes back to what I work with identity.
Yes.
I was a wife, I was a mother for X amount of years. Now I'm a divorcee for X amount of years. So your brain is being rewired. So now when you find a healthy relationship, how are you going to rediscover and embrace this new identity? That's the part that is difficult for a lot of people. Can I be wife again? Can I be a mother again? Can I be in a healthy relationship again? That is something a lot of women struggle with because if they've had, to your point, bad relationship after bad relationship, their identity becomes I'm a toxic person who attracts a toxic person, or I'm not good enough, or I'm old, I'm useless,
Yeah.
whatever. So now
Mhm.
someone comes along and says, "Hey, you're beautiful." Oh my God, I don't believe you. I've been told I'm ugly for 15 years.
Yeah, it's like,
Like how do like coming out of that, it's where I work with people because a lot of people, especially women, struggle because so
yes.
many women associate their value with how they look and what's in between their legs, where they got to find different ways to attach value to themselves.
Yeah, and that's true. And I think a lot of women just misuse their bodies. They will devalue their bodies by just giving it away to any and everybody just because that validates them. Somebody wanted me. Somebody said yes to me. Somebody was interested in me. They're not interested in you. They're just interested in the one thing, you know? So, I think that plays into it. And it makes me so sad. And I have learned to tell women, and I've had to learn that myself, walk in your worth, realize your worth. And that is intrinsic worth. If you've let life teach you, if you've gained a lot of wisdom, value that. Not everybody has that. Not everybody has learned from their life experiences. Some are still in their minds 18 years old, you know, so just walk in your worth. So, do you spend a lot of your time telling women to walk in their worth, know their worth?
100%. And I will also ask them, what is it? How do you want to be valued?
Yeah,
Right? Like
yeah.
no one asked that question. Like, how do you want to be valued? Like for me, I'll share a story. I remember I dated this person years ago and she hates me, so whatever. So
We all have those.
we all have those, right? So I remember I approached her and I asked her, I was like, you know what, you look nice. I would like to get to know you. Can we go over here and talk? It was at a cruise, I think it was. It was all white cruise.
Okay.
And we started talking, we got to know each other. And then one of her friends comes along and she's like, well, to talk to my friend, you have to buy us all a drink. So I looked around, I was like, oh, and you know how women when they go to cruises, it's not like two people, there's like five or six of them, right? I'm
Yes.
like, no. I'm like, what is this, an entry fee? I'm not paying an entry fee for this. So I
Wow.
shared that because right at the beginning, money was involved, or there was. That's how they associated value, right? Can he spend X amount of dollars, which raises his value?
Wow.
Flash forward months later, she finally decided to call me. So she called me, we had a conversation. She's like, yeah, you know what? I want to hang out and I want to get to know you. So we eventually did date. But
Okay.
she shared after that she Googled me, LinkedIn,
Hmm.
search online,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
then after a couple months after we're dating, because we're in different cities, she's like, okay, I need to see your house, right? Because remember, she did all this detective work, right?
Yes.
So the more that she found that I'm a manager here, I'm a bank here, so it was increasing my value. I wasn't doing any work, I was just
Hmm.
existing.
Yeah.
So I share that because some people will associate value based on certain things. But it
Hmm.
comes back to how do you want to be valued? Me as the man, I want to be valued how I treat women, how I interact with women, how I help women, right? That's the true value. If you can identify your self-worth that way, then no one can take it away from you. But if you're associated with cars, a house, and your job, that can be taken away from you. So that's how I educate the women I work with to make sure you identify how you want to be valued, attach that value, and then put that value out into the world to people who's going to appreciate it as well.
Oh man, that's so true. And to your cruise story, I was years ago, like in the probably the early 2000s, 2003, 4, 5, something like that. And I was in a group like a Bible study, a home Bible study. And there were a lot of singles in the Bible study. And, it was fun to share stories. But one of the men in that Bible study said, and we were talking about dating one night, and he goes, I went on a date and the woman asked for my financial statement. And, I mean, all of our mouths dropped open. Like, no, you're kidding. This is a joke. He said, no joke. She asked to see my bottom line financially so she could determine whether or not she wanted to move forward. I mean, to me, that's a run in the opposite direction situation.
You should see it now. Like people ask for credit reports, how many student loan debts you have. Yeah, it's I always make the joke that treat it like your job. Some people are treating it like a credit application. Okay, how long have you been working here? How long have you been living here? What's your credit score? Right now, because, and I say this ever since COVID, people are asking questions. Some of them they should, like you should ask if someone has, have you been checked? Right? I think that's
Yeah,
valid,
exactly.
right? But some other things like when it comes to your point, the business financials and things like that, because everyone is being assigned a score,
Yes,
right?
I
And that's
think
the thing.
so.
Like a man's score is assigned in one way, provider, and a woman's score is being provided in is being assigned another way, peace. How does she
Mm,
look? How does she make me feel? How does this, right?
yeah.
Where a man is okay, safety and security. So I definitely see that happening as well. And it's not even it's young, old, and everything in between.
That's amazing. And I sound old to say this, but it's not like the old days where you just thought someone was cute, you started talking, you went out, and then 6 months later you were married. It's a different ball game out there, one that I'm not interested in. Uh, but okay, so we're going to wrap up, and I to wrap up, I want to ask you, what is your best piece of advice for somebody, a woman over 40 that finds herself divorced, single, widowed, and her kids, her grandkids, whoever around her are telling her, "Oh, grandma, you have to go online dating. You have to get out in the pool again and everything." What is your one big tip for women who are approaching that? And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've seen what's that movie? Not You've Got Mail. Um, I don't know, Diane Lane and John Cusack, but yeah, so they're just, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was like this. What do you say?
The biggest tip I'll give someone is what we touched on here, but I'll expand on it, is your self-worth. Find things that make you valuable internally, not toys, not cars, not nothing like that.
Yeah.
Identify what makes you you that you believe is valuable. Then go out there and find someone that's going to appreciate that. And the biggest thing you're going to find is that that person is going to take you out of your comfort zone because he may look a lot different than all the other men that you've dated, but different in a lot of ways is good because if you go for the same type of person, you're gonna get the same type of results. And your past is an indication of that. So self-worth, assign yourself your value based on what you bring and find someone that's going to appreciate it. Those are the biggest tip that ties back to self-worth.
Oh, that's so great. They're so great. I think we could probably talk for another hour and not run out of things to say. You always have a lot of wisdom nuggets. So, how can people reach you in every way possible?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you, Michelle, of course, for having me on the show. It is always a pleasure. And
Mine too.
everyone can find me at www.behindtheshades.ca. That is my coaching website. Just go there, book yourself a complimentary coaching call. For those tuning in, you get that free of charge, so no charge for doing that. And if you want to follow me on Facebook, it is facebook.com/behind the shades. So I am there. Book yourself a session. It's free of charge if you quote this beautiful interview that I've had with Michelle. And I appreciate everything you've done, Michelle.
Well, I appreciate you too, Terrain. And I just want to clarify because sometimes sound and people's ears and everything, it's behind the shades with an S at that because some people will hear it differently. So behind the shades with an S,
Yes, behind the shades, plural. So
plural.
BEHINDTHESHADES, behind the shades.ca.
That's CA because you're based in Canada.
You got
Yes.
it.
We've known that for a while. Okay, well, thank you, Terrain. Always a pleasure. I mean, just so much good material here. And I hope everybody that's listening just gleans a lot of wisdom from what you had to say. So I thank you, everybody, for watching. If you've liked this episode, if you found value in it,